G'day guys and gal. Primarchs dying in 40k is a big deal. Fate and destiny itself bends to their will, and each of them have been pivotal in creating the setting as it is today. Some died in epic final showdowns, like Sanguinius. Some died like dogs needing to be put down, like Sanguinius, I'm joking, don't shoot me, like Conrad. And others died off page to a horde of cultists like some chump, like Rogal Dorn. That's right, it wasn't even Space Marines that allegedly killed Rogal. However, with GW being aware of how much money Primarch models can make them, they have softened some of the lore surrounding the Praetorian's demise, so much so that it may even be possible for a future return of the Lord of the 5th Legion. So I thought it'd be interesting to dive into the lore today and highlight all the clues that could indicate if Rogal Dorn is actually dead or alive in the current setting. Before we get started, exciting news guys and gal, as I'm so fucking happy to continue the launch of the Praetorian. This is a model I've been cooking for months and I want to get it as close to perfect as possible. As this is a special launch, this model will only be available for 2 weeks before it's gone. As you guys have seen, I don't bring back these limited models often, and when I do, it's often ages down the track. The idea of this model was, what if our stubborn Fortress Lord returned in the current setting? Which piece of his father's war gear would he return with? What style of armor would he choose? What pieces of his old aesthetic would he carry over, and what pieces would be new? We decided to give him his father's power claw to replace his missing hand, as that just seems like an absolute no-brainer. Likewise, his pose is similar to that of the Big E model. I envision him as the true avenging son returning, the fortitude of the Praetorian with the rage of the Templar, which his armor represents. We also threw in a helmet variant, as I know not everyone likes painting faces, however I do hope you at least take a stab at those mutton chops. I could talk about this model for ages, but I think it speaks for itself. We're launching it at 3 scales: the tabletop scale for all your wargaming needs, the art scale for those who want bigger details to paint with and even submit into competitions, and the Titanic scale for those that want a larger than life model ready to flex on people with. Link is below, don't miss out. Today we'll go over the alleged death of Dorn, as well as the clues that hint towards him potentially being alive. We'll also discuss where he may have been and what he may do if he returns. Let's get into it. GW is constantly retconning old lore, as occasionally they would write themselves into a corner back when deciding if Dorn was alive or dead, as this bit of a side note ended up becoming a multi-million-dollar decision. Original lore was that Dorn was dead. See, GW really wanked itself over its grimdark vibe, sometimes too much, as there are some scenes in the lore that are just plain retarded, i.e. Grey Knights slaughtering faithful sisters of battle and bathing in their blood as some kind of anti-Khornite shield. Jesus Christ. Likewise, Rogal Dorn, the loyal steadfast son, being trapped on a Black Legion ship, then getting shanked to death by a bunch of cultists also sounds grimdark as an inglorious way for a hero to die, alone, unseen, and screaming his rage into the dark. If Dorn does die like this, it's by far the most meaningless and unepic death out of all the Primarchs. Even more so than Conrad's, because at least Conrad aura farmed before he died, and his death was more of a suicide than anything else. So over time, GW has softened the wording on Rogal Dorn's death. Initially, his mutilated body was found when his warriors arrived to try help him, however new lore states that only his hand was found, and it is now the most sacred relic of the Imperial Fists. There has been absolutely no trace found of the rest of his body, which is pretty unusual. If Rogal was slain by a group of cultists, you can bet your ass they would have sliced up his body, and there would be hundreds of dudes running around with bits and pieces of Dorn and his armor as trophies. It's literally what happened with Ferris after all. Now, instead of just going down a conspiracy theory rabbit hole, here is the timeline of the lore about Dorn's alleged death. In 2011, GW stated that Dorn was dead, and his body was found by his chief librarian, who brought his body back to the Phalanx, in somewhat of a mirror of the Emperor's own death and discovery by Dorn. However, I assume that that lore writer got shot or something, because the very next year, in 2012's 6th edition, the lore states only Dorn's hand was found, and Dorn is missing without a trace. However, to make things even more confusing, in 2012, the lore regarding Conrad seeing Dorn's future of him getting murdered alone in the dark by 100 knives is unveiled. However, Conrad is about as reliable as a Greek mechanic, and his visions are subjective, and we know fate is not set in stone. In the 2019 Imperial Fist Codex supplement, the lore further affirms Dorn is missing, with some of his sons even believing Dorn is out there somewhere fighting the good fight. However, again, that same year we got Conrad's book coming out, which again references his vision of Dorn's death. Any further references say the same thing. Dorn is missing, his hand is a relic, no one actually knows where he is. We don't even get the cheeky shit from Magnus, who insinuates he knows where he is, like he did with Lehman. Another spanner in the works is that when Vulcan appeared and helped the Imperium during the War of the Beast, he told the Imperial Fist chapter master that his father would be proud of him, and that he would speak to Dorn about him when he next met with him. Now, all the lore from the War of the Beast is kind of whack, but it is still technically canon. And this can mean one of two things. Either A, when Vulcan dies and respawns, he spends a brief amount of time in the warp, where he could even commune with his dead brother, brothers, as their Primarch souls are so powerful that they do not dissolve in the warp nor can demons eat them. Or it could mean that the Primarchs in exile, of which Vulcan was one, know how to find each other and occasionally cross paths. Or Vulcan is just a fucking liar, but I doubt that. There is one final clue regarding Dorn's potential status. In the very recent Fulgrim book, one of the main characters is a Black Templar's Empress champion, who often receives visions. He receives a vision of himself fighting alongside Dorn against the Empress children and Fulgrim, a vision which actually led him to the Empress children and to fight against them. This guy was a beast, however he would eventually be slain, his vision unfulfilled. It's unclear if it was a vision of a potential future, or some kind of ability he had that would guide him to where he needed to be via metaphors, or if another entity was sending him these visions. However, since it literally put him face to face with Fulgrim, it's 100% not a coincidence. Out of all the missing Primarchs, Dorn holds a unique spot. See, we knew exactly where Guilliman and the Lion were prior to their return. Likewise with Russ, Jagdai and Corvus, they all went off on their own side quests, and it's very clear that they are simply missing and still alive. All the traitors are accounted for on the other side, except maybe Omegon, but he's kind of loyalist anyway. So only Vulcan and Dorn were the unknown when it comes to if they're alive or not, but since Vulcan cannot die, it just leaves Dorn. If he is alive, this also creates a bit of an interesting situation. See, the Lion and Guilliman basically just picked up where they left off. One moment they were fighting in 30k, the next they woke up 10,000 years later in 40k. They maintain the same personalities, albeit having learnt some valuable lessons. However, if Dorn is alive, then more than likely he's been kicking for 10,000 years. So there's a decent chance he will be dramatically changed. It's just hard to know if that change is becoming more wise and unbreakable, or if it's becoming weaponized autism incarnate. Okay, so we know that Dorn is likely alive somewhere. After all, returning Primarchs are absolute cash cows when GW brings them back, and if there's something we know about GW, it's that they love their money. However, I also believe that Dorn will be one of the last loyalist Primarchs to return. But where could he be? Well, if Jagdai is in the Webway, and Russ and Corvus are in the Eye of Terror, or even the Warp, is Dorn in one of those places? In my opinion, no. Dorn is like the anti-Warp Primarch. The Warp literally becomes itself around him, and he has absolutely no Warp abilities. The dude literally imprisoned all of his Legion's librarians after the Edict of Nicaea was issued. Now granted, that was because he wanted to save them as an ace up his sleeve, rather than just straight up ignorance, but it's clear his knowledge of the Warp sucked ass. So why would he go to where it was warpy? Likewise, the Demon Primarchs seem to know where Corvus and Lehman are roughly, as those are the two that entered the Eye of Terror. Yet no mention of Dorn has been made, and you bet your ass those smug motherfuckers would love to talk shit on Dorn if they could. After all, he was the one that cucked them the hardest during the Siege of Terror, so he is likely in real space somewhere. Now we know that Primarchs get more powerful over time. Sanguinius at the end of the Heresy was an entirely different beast to what he was at the start. Likewise, they can also develop new abilities, such as Corvus becoming extremely spooky, as well as the Lion waking up with an extremely overpowered teleportation ability. Now both Guilliman and Dorn are the least warpy of all the Primarchs, making up for it by not being massive retards and actually understanding how to build and manage things. However, it does seem like the more warp-based a Primarch is, the more they can evolve. Corvus had special powers that seemed to evolve, as did Sanguinius. The Lion wasn't known to be warpy, but he also wasn't as grounded as Dorn or Guilliman. When Russ, Jagdai and Corvus return, I expect them to be quite changed with new abilities, but I honestly don't really expect that from Dorn. Perhaps he can project a blank aura, making him the only blank Primarch, which would cut chaos super hard and actually be super powerful. An ability born from his indomitable will, but that's as far as I see it going. Now, would this version of Dorn be deranged from 10,000 years of existing? No, I don't think so. The Emperor and Malkador were alive for a very long time, and age didn't seem to wear them down or erode their minds. Primarch minds are also built to be able to handle time. Likewise, Dorn was locked in a Khornite pocket dimension for hundreds of years with nothing but sand, the whispers of Khorne, and thousands of dead Imperial fists to keep him company. Despite that, he managed to maintain his sanity, resist Khorne, and when he broke out, he instantly returned to fighting. So the dude knows how to handle a bit of downtime. A return to Dorn would likely be an amalgamation of various aspects of the Imperial fists. At the core, he would be the stoic, unbreakable bulwark on which the galaxy breaks, but he would also have that frenzy and desire for battle that the Templars have. I do also think Dorn would have developed the flexibility and versatility of the Crimson Fists as well. Overall, I'm expecting a well-rounded, seasoned warrior who is forever an unbreakable wall, but one that has also learned that a wall flexing under pressure is even more unbreakable than one that refuses to move until it cracks. I feel like that was a good metaphor, but I'm also like 3 white monsters deep, so it could have been the most autistic shit ever. If you enjoyed the video and you want to support the channel, then pick up the Praetorian, a legendary model available for less than 2 weeks. Hit the subscribe button, hit the real subscribe button for more unbreakable content. Join the Discord for more memes, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.